Hello everyone, welcome to part 1 of the video tutorial for Master Detective. First we're going to go over the materials that you will need. So obviously you will need your pattern paper. I used there's a lot of paper I used in this album. I used the full 12 by 12 pattern paper as well as the 12 by 12 patterns in solids and the ephemera collection. So you will also need your black cardstock. I'm using 8.5 by 11 cardstock. You will need about anywhere from 40 to 50 pieces depending on how many tags etc. you want for your pockets. You will also need at least 3 pieces of a medium weight chipboard for the covers. You will need your paper cutter. You will need some score tape or red line tape, some foam tape with some you know, like a raised edge, like I'm not sure how thick this is, maybe a few millimeters thick, about the same thickness as your chipboard. You will also need some wet adhesive. I'm using the Aqua Tombow liquid glue and your ATG gun. You will need scissors and a ruler, a pen or marker or something to mark things on your page, because we're going to be doing some swing tabs and some cutting, etc. Which means you will also need a craft mat and some kind of craft knife or an X-Acto knife. Of course you will need your scoreboard with your bone folder and scoring tool. And you will need either a crocodile or something to punch holes into the paper for your swing tabs. For one of the pages you're going to need a plastic bag. You can use just a grocery bag. I'm using part of a bag that some paper came in, which will work just as good. For one of the pages you will need a couple coins. I'm just using a couple nickels. You can use whatever coins you like, as long as you have 2 of them. You will need some swing tabs, your choice of what kind of swing tab. And then optional is one of the a Lawn Fawn die. I will be using this one here. It's just to create a, oh, it's really dark in here, I apologize. I'll be using this one, which is just to make a little track. If you don't have the dies, not a problem. You can just use your craft knife and craft mat to cut it. And also, optionally, is a Tyvek envelope. You can also use duct tape, or you can get away with not using anything if you desire. It just helps strengthen folds that are going to be carrying a lot of weight. Okay, so get all that together and we will begin with our base pages. Okay, to begin for your base pages you will need 4 pieces of cardstock measuring 8.5 by 10. And you will also need 4 pieces of cardstock measuring 7.5 by 10. Okay, so take each one of the larger pieces and score each one of them at half and at 8 along the 8.5 inch side. Okay, so I did one already. So we've got 4 pieces all scored at 1/2 inch and at 8 inches along the 8.5 inch side. Set your scoreboard aside for a moment. And now we are going to add score tape or red line tape or something like that to each one of these 1/2 inch sections. Now make sure that as you're adding your score tape, you do not go over that score line. Sorry. Do not go over, I don't know if you can see that, but there is a space between the score line and the score tape. Okay, so do that to all 4. Add your score tape to that 1/2 inch section all the way along. When you score something, it creates a mountain and a valley. So in mini album terms, the mountain is the raised edge that you get, and the valley is the indent that the score line creates. So the indent, the valley, is where, that's the side you'll put your score tape. You want to always fold your score lines so that the valleys turn into mountains. You never want to fold inwards on a valley. So for instance, because we've got the indent here, you never want to fold into the indent because that weakens the fibers of the paper. So whenever there's an indent, you want to fold away from it, turning it into a mountain. Okay? So if I ever talk about the mountain and valley rule, that's the rule. Making sure you always turn your valleys into mountains. Alright, so the next step is to miter the corners. So you're going to cut at an angle from the edge of the... Oh, this light in here is making me crazy. I wish I had better light. The very edge of the score line to the edge of the page at an angle. And they don't have to be perfect, but you want to do that to all 4 of them. Mitering the corners just helps so that when you fold on these score lines, you won't see a little bulk. This will all be hidden. If we didn't cut it, there could be a little bit showing right here, and you don't want that. You want a nice clean edge where you can't tell where exactly it's folded under. Okay, so we just keep going all the way around. And that's why we put the score tape on before we miter the corners, because that way the score tape is right up to the tippy edge, and you don't have any space that doesn't have adhesive on it. Ensure a good bond. Okay, so get rid of those little bitties. And now we will fold all of these score lines. So get your bone folder out or something to crease the score lines. So fold them over, valley into mountain, and then take your bone folder and just crease the fold so you've got a really good fold there. And the last one. All right, and now take each of those pieces and we are simply going to adhere each one of these onto each one of these. So remove the backing from the score tape. Easier said than done. There we go. And now I find it easiest to line up one side first, and then the second half should line up perfectly so that you have essentially a tube. Okay, so one end will go onto your hinge mechanism and the other side will be a pocket. So do that to all four. And now if you don't have to keep this open as a pocket if you decide not to. You could put score tape on the end of this one as well and close it up. Completely your choice. Okay, and the very last one. Okay, now you've got 4 base pages. So keep one nearby. The other 3 you can set aside for now. You won't need them quite yet. And we will get our pieces cut for page 1. Okay, so just a reminder to show you what page 1 will look like. We've got 2 flaps that have magnets and they move to either edge along these tracks. That opens like that, opens again, and then you've got these little flaps that open up. Okay, oops. All right, so the pieces you will need for page 1. Your A pieces, you'll need 2 measuring 4.5 by 6.5. 4.5 by 6.5 times 2. Your B pieces, are 7.5 by 4 1/8. 2 of those. Your C pieces, also 2 of them, 7.5 by 6 3/4. And your D pieces, you'll need 4 of those, and they are 3 1/8 by 4 1/4. Okay, I'll go over those really quickly once again. Your 2 A pieces, 4.5 by 6.5. Your B pieces, again 2 of them, 7.5 by 4 1/8. C pieces, 2 of them, 7.5, 6 3/4. And your D pieces, 4 of them, 3 1/8, 4 1/4. Okay, so get your trusty scoreboard out here. Okay, so for your A pieces, score them each at half on the 6.5 inch side. So half on the 6.5 inch side. Okay. Your B pieces will be scored at half and 5/8, the tick right next to it, and that's along the 4 1/8 inch side. So score both of those. Your C pieces. Your C pieces will be scored at 3.5 on the 6 3/4 inch side. 3.5 on the 6 3/4. And lastly, your D pieces. Actually, your D pieces don't get scored at all. So we are done with the scoring. So set your scoreboard aside. And now your C and D pieces, you don't have to add any score tape, but your A and B pieces will need some score tape. So add some score tape to the 1/2 inch sections of A. And the 1/2 inch sections of B. Now, for your B, you've got that extra score line. Make sure that you do not go over that other score line. So just make sure that it's on just the 1/2 inch, not that 5/8 of an inch. And we're going to miter the corners again. Now make sure when you miter the corners that you only cut from the 1/2 inch score line. You don't cut into that other little gusset you've made. So don't go as far as your 5/8 score line. Just up, just from the 1/2 inch score line to the edge of the paper. And do your A's as well. And now bring in your base page. Your openings are to the left and the right. Your A pieces are going to go smack dab in the middle on the top and the bottom. Alright, now you can measure this exactly if you prefer. I tend to eyeball a lot of things. Seems to work out okay for me, but you're definitely welcome to completely, mark the center of it and make sure you're even, just to make sure. Let's see how close we are here. We've got 2.5 on that side and a little over 2. So I'm a little bit off. I might try moving it just a little smidge over. Okay, that's better. There we go. Alright, so and then the other one, so one goes to the top, and then your other A piece, line it up even with your other A piece there and onto the bottom of the base. Alright, now we will work with your 2 B pieces. So we need to create a track for our other pieces to slide along. So we need to mark the center top to bottom, and this is 7.5. So I've made a little dot at the 3 3/4 inch mark, And now it needs to start at 3/4 of an inch from the score line. So let's mark 3/4 of an inch from the score line, so right there. And it needs to be 2¼ inches long. Alright, so draw a line that is 2¼ inches long. Alright, so that is it. And it needs to measure 3/8 of an inch wide. So I am going to be using a die cut for this. However, you can just cut out a little track using a craft knife and a mat. It works the same way, this is just a little bit faster. Alright, so this is how big your track should be. Alright? That's the size of it. So I'm going to run these through my die cut. I'm going to do them both together. If you're using a craft knife, make sure that your pieces are like this as you measure them. So the one on the right side, it'll be quite close to the center edge, and so will this one. So make sure you measure 3/4 of an inch from the score lines on each piece with the pieces sitting like that. Okay, so I'm gonna cut it with my Big Shot. I'll line this up. I'm gonna put some tape there. Alright, so I am going to run these through and I'll be right back. Alright, so now that you've got your channel in there, we should add our pattern paper just to these two pieces. Alright, so I've got 2 pieces of pattern paper. I'm using from the Patterns in Solids, the green. So these measure 3 5/8 by 7 1/4. And so you want to line it up where you want it, making sure it's not crossing over the score lines. Alright, so line it up, and then holding it there, flip it over, and then trace where that opening is. Alright, you're not going to see this. This is going to be covered up. But that just shows you where exactly you need to cut to line it up with your track. So do the same thing on the other one. So line it up, flip it over, and then trace where that track is that you've cut. And then you know exactly where you have to cut the pattern paper. Alright, so now do the same, make the same hole in your pattern paper. I'm going to use the die cut again. And, oh, and I've also inked the edges. I forgot to mention this in the what we need section. I've inked the edges with black soot distress ink. You can use, you don't have to ink the edges at all if you don't want to, but if you are, I'm using the black soot. You can use whatever color you desire. So I'm going to run these through my machine and adhere them down, and then we'll continue. Okay, so I discovered while editing that I somehow had a computer meltdown and lost part of the footage for this page. So I've actually already completed the page and then realized that I was missing the footage. So I'm doing it over. However, you'll see that the pattern paper has already been used, which means I'll just be using white to show you. So we left off, we've got our pattern paper cut out with this, our little track here, and it is adhered to the front. So now we're going to flip both of these pieces over, and we are going to place a coin, just place it on top of the track. It doesn't have to be a specific coin. I'm just using a nickel. You can use, you know, whatever coin you have handy, just around that size. And then we are going to put foam tape all the way around the opening. Well, all the way around the coin, I guess. Making sure that it's quite close to the coin, but not touching it. Okay, and I'm using, this foam tape is, how many millimeters thick? Where's my ruler? So it's like a 3 millimeters thick. Okay, so all the way around that coin. So, because you want the coin to be able to slide, so you don't want it to get stuck on the foam tape. But you want, the foam tape's pretty much going to hold it into the track. Alright, so all the way around. And we'll do that for both pieces. And something you can do but don't absolutely have to is if you have, this is like an anti, what do you call it, the anti-static tool. It's usually used for stamping and embossing and everything. What you can do is just kind of like rub the corner of it along the inside edge of the foam tape, just to kind of take away the stickiness just on that one edge, and that way the coin will slide freely without getting stuck. Okay, so I'll do the same on this side. Okay. Okay, now if you haven't already, get your 2 C pieces. They're the ones that measure 6 3/4 by, what was it, 7 1/2? Yeah, 7 1/2 by 6 3. You're going to score them at 3 1/2 along the 6 3/4 inch side and fold on the score lines. Okay, and then we're going to apply score tape here and here, and we are going to adhere your piece C. So there's a slightly longer side, or wider side I should say. So that is what is going to adhere down onto this. So we're going to do it like that, so that it covers all your foam tape and the coin and everything like that. Okay, so we're going to add score tape. You can use wet glue if you prefer. Alright, now remove the backing from all of those pieces, the score tape and the foam tape. So I'm going to do this off camera because it's going to take me a minute, so I'll be right back. Okay, so once you have all your backing off, we are going to adhere these down. So the slightly wider side, it's going to open this way. Alright, so we'll adhere this down. Alright, like that, and then we'll do the other one. So the slightly wider side is to the bottom. Alright, now we can adhere these onto our base page. Alright, so we've got our score tape on the back here. Take the backing off, and they are going to adhere to the left and the right side of your base page. And the coin should move nicely in here. And we'll do it to the other side as well. Okay. Alright, so now those open up like that. Excellent. Now we will grab our D pieces. We've got those 4 small D pieces, and what we're going to do is place a tiny little bit of score tape centered and about half an inch in on 2 of them. And then you're going to place 1 magnet, just 1, on each of those pieces of score tape. So 1 there. And 1 there. Okay, and now we're going to place the other D piece on top of this. So we're going to make a little sandwich out of these pieces, simply because if you keep the magnet the way it is, it's going to get caught as it slides across. So you want another piece over top so that the magnet does not get stuck, because these are going to be going sliding over, and if the magnet's like that, it's going to get stuck, but if we have another piece of paper, it'll just slide all the way. Okay, remove the backing from these pieces. Alright, get all those out of the way. And now add your other two D pieces just right on top to make a little sandwich. And do the same to the other one. All right. Now next, we need to get a little piece of foam tape. And now you need it to so that it's thin enough that it will fit, because we're going to be putting this on top of your coin. So it needs to fit on your coin, but be thin enough that it doesn't touch the edges of your slider mechanism. Okay, so cut it thin enough that it can do that. All right. And now we're going to grab two more magnets. And where is it? There we go. Let them just find their partner. Okay, and now put a tiny bit of score tape on top of each one of those magnets. And remove the backing. So now make sure your coins are as close to the center as they go along your track. Okay, so they're right close to center. And now these pieces are you're going to put them with the magnets close together that way. And you're going to line them up so that they're centered. And this is going to adhere the D pieces down onto the foam on your coin, and it's also going to adhere the magnets in place. So now when you pull these apart, but you have to take the backing off the foam first. that really helps to adhere things. Minor little details. Okay, there we go. I was wondering why that wasn't working. And there we go. Okay, so now there we are. That one will adhere. And where's the magnet on this one? There we go. Alright, so now when you slide them out, they should both slide perfectly to the edge of these pieces here. Alright, and then when you slide them back, they're like that. Alright, so I'm just going to show you, because unfortunately I've already decorated the page, so you don't actually get to see me putting the pattern paper on, but I will show you what it ends up looking like. So I've used 2 ephemera cards on the front, and then they slide open, and then these open, and so it's all the oranges and greens, done an orange border strip here, and then opens like that, and then these 2 fold up and down, like that, and they magnet back into place. Alright, so that is that page, and now we can continue on to the next page.